Hello, hello, hello. All right, before I get into this video, this is going to be me talking about just my day today, going to my uncle's funeral and all that. So, the title is not clickbait at all. I am truly, like, emotionally exhausted. And I think, like, more so than I expected to be. So this will probably be a very emotional video for those. So for those of you that like don't like to cry or say, "Oh, Peter, you got me going," and you're putting your makeup on right now, I don't know that this is probably the video to watch at this moment for you. I have no idea where the direction of this video is going to go. So, but I'm just drained. I took a nap tonight. When Alex and I got home, I really haven't even eaten anything today except for like 2 pieces of this Cinnabon pound cake with some cream cheese on it. That's like literally all I've had. And which is horrible. And the only reason I ate that was because that's literally all that was available to me. And that's not true. I ate a little bit at the funeral. I had some of these like stuffed mushrooms, and then I had some celery sticks that had like cream cheese or I don't know, some kind of dressing in them or whatever. And then I had like a glass of lemonade and a little cheesecake. So I got up today and I filmed a video for my main channel really quick. And then I tried to film a Peterisms video, and Alex was on his way home, and I could not get out what I wanted to say. And it was really about, the video was going to be about, like, you know, phone calls that you don't want to receive. You know what I mean? About, like, when my cousin called me, and I was talking in this video about, it's always like when you don't expect that you're going to get phone calls like that they just, like, totally, you know, blindside you. I just couldn't get the video out. Like, and it wasn't that I was, like, crying or anything in it. It was just, I would just, like, be talking, and then all of a sudden I just stop, and, like, I didn't really know what to say. And, it was so strange because I felt, like, so emotionally stunted before we went to the funeral today. Like I said, I hadn't really talked to my cousin a whole lot, and I talked to her son today, who's 17, and he and I are real close, and I said, can I ask you a question? He's like, yeah, and I was like, have there been, like, people over there, like, every night? And he was like, no, and I said, well, I feel bad, David. I said, you know, like, I was trying to give your mom her space, and he said, Peter, everybody knew that my mom wanted her space. You know, there was not a lot of people over there, and I was like, okay. Because I felt bad. Like, you know, with my aunt, I felt like I was such a big part of the whole planning of it and everything like that. And with this, I just felt like I was just showing up to the funeral, and that Caroline didn't really need me for anything or lean on me. But at the same time, like, and this is where my social anxiety kind of comes in, even with family members. Like, I don't like to be super intrusive. So unless somebody calls me up and says, I need your help, I'm not good at just showing up and being that person. With Tanya, I would say I am, because we've been through so much now that I kind of know how she likes me to respond in those situations. But with Caroline, I'm not. You know, and I was thinking back about, like, my whole, like, going through everything with my mom, and it was like, really, other than going to the funeral home to plan the funeral, Caroline wasn't part of that either. And I remember the day that my mom passed away and we took her off life support, my cousin didn't want to be there. She was like, this is not how I want to remember her and stuff. And so, you know, it's interesting, my cousin and I have a mutual respect for, I think, how the other person deals with things emotionally. But the funeral home was very close to where we live, and so Alex came home from work, and he was like, are you okay? And I had gone already and gotten this coffee, which has 15 paper towels in it, because it's been melting. It's been like 90 degrees every day here. And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. So we were on the way to the funeral, or the viewing, and then the funeral was right after. And he said, you don't seem okay. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he goes, you're just very quiet. You're very, like, I don't see any emotion coming from you whatsoever. I honestly, I felt like I was on autopilot. And I said, Alex, I said, this is going to sound really kind of cold. I said, but like, I really don't even want to go. And he was like, what do you mean? And I said, well, does that sound cold? And he goes, yeah, it kind of does. And I said, I said, it's not like I don't want to go, like my uncle didn't mean anything to me. It's like, I feel like I have kind of, I don't know if anybody will relate to this, but I said, I feel like I have kind of like a good idea usually going into a situation, like I'm going to be real emotional about it or I'm not going to be real emotional about it. But I've honestly felt completely numb, just totally numb. And what was really weird about this was that this was so similar to how I felt with my mom. Like, until I got into the funeral home the day of her viewing, and my mom's funeral was different. Like, she had a viewing the night before, and then her funeral was the next day at a church. Until I got into the funeral that night, the viewing that night, like, I had no idea how I was gonna feel. Like, I really didn't, And and I said, and he goes, well, are you scared of how you might feel? And I said, no, like, I'm not scared of my emotions. I said, I don't really know how I feel about this. Like, I don't even feel like I've really processed it or anything. And, so we walk inside. We got there, like, right at 2 o'clock. It started at 2 o'clock. It was from 2 to 4. And we got there at, like, 10 till 2. And there were already people coming through the line. So we walked in, and I could see my cousin and her husband standing by the door. Caroline was kind of standing off to a little bit, talking to somebody. And then, like, Caroline has 2 cousins on her dad's side, and they were there. And so Darren, who is her cousin on her dad's side, came in right behind us. And so I was talking to him, and he was just kind of telling me about his mom and dad and stuff. And still, I just kind of was like, and so, like, I walked in the door, like, Alex signed us in, and I, like, walked in the door, and I, like, saw Caroline. I just completely lost it. Like, nobody was crying, like, I don't know why, I don't know, it doesn't matter, but, like, I completely just lost it. Like, literally, like, I know you guys see me, like, be very emotional in my vlogs and stuff, but usually in situations like that, I've kind of felt my feelings, I've grieved a little bit, like, but I hadn't done anything like that. I hadn't really, like, the day that I found out was very emotional for me, but other than, like, making a video talking about it the next day, like, I just was like, I didn't really think about it, honestly, the last week, I mean, we went to the wedding, and I had my birthday, and so I didn't really think about it, and, I just completely lost it. And she was just like, I love you so much. She was like, we have to stay close. It's just the 2 of us now, And then her son just, like, hugged me, and he just, like, wouldn't let go, And I'm sitting there thinking about how 10 years ago, he was 7, and he and my mom were so close, and, like, I remember my aunt, she, like, walked in front of the casket going into the church with David holding his hand when he was a little kid, 7 years old, and they walked down the aisle in front of the casket, and I walked next to them, and I'm sitting there looking at him, now he's, like, long hair, tall, super tall, like, in a band, like, rock star drummer, and I'm like, God, time, time changes, like, time changes everything. It's like time's going on. And, it's so weird, like, I remembered this from my mom's funeral, that, like, it's always somebody random that comes up and says hi to you, that, like, you don't expect. And, there were, like, so many people there that just, like, came up and started talking to me. that were just, I mean, this is like, you guys, like, it's my childhood. Like, all these people that came through the door were people that I grew up with, you know, and it was like, and everybody's asking, they're like, who's this and who's that? And I'm like, I mean, it was just like, I felt like my childhood was just in this room, you know? And, this one guy that lives in my neighborhood, I guess he's moving, I didn't know that. He and my uncle used to walk every day together. He's such a nice guy. And he came in and I just like lost it completely just seeing him there. And then this woman that lives in our neighborhood that I always talk about, she was there and she was with one of my dad's good friends from college. And when my dad and my stepmom didn't even show up till like 20 minutes before the funeral started. And she was like, oh my God, she's like, your dad hasn't changed a bit. She's like, she was telling me this story about my dad and my mom lived in this apartment next to my aunt and my uncle, like lived in the same apartment building. And she, so everybody from college calls my dad Monzy. And she's like, oh my God, Peter, she's like, I saw Monzy. I couldn't believe he hasn't changed one bit. And this is like one of my dad's really good friends from college, this woman. And I was like, yeah, that's what people say. She's like, no, he hasn't changed at all. And she's like, I remember when we were in college and he would come up to everybody this one week and he was like, now listen. This was when he was in the Fiji house and he was like, oh no, this was in college. So she was like, I still remember when your parents lived in Cold Springs Manor, and then she said, but when we were in college, she's like, we had this, your dad had this party, and he was always known for throwing these crazy parties, and she said he had this party like his senior year when he was at Fiji, and he was like, okay, listen. Gonna have a cosmopolitan party. My dad kind of talks like a gangster a little bit, and he was like, okay, we're gonna have a party, and we're gonna drink cosmopolitan, see, and everybody has to come in through the window, see. And she was telling me this story. So, and it was good, you know, like it was really good to see all these people, and I think that's the weird thing about funerals. It's like, it's like you're there for like, I mean, everybody says, you know, like, gosh, I wish I'd seen you under different circumstances. But then as you start looking around the room and you start realizing that the only time you see people as you get older are these circumstances. And this was really hard because I'm going to say something and then like reference it into what my dad said in his, when my dad spoke. Because my dad gave such an eloquent speech. I mean, just such a, I literally just sobbed the entire time my dad spoke. And, you know, you look around the room and you're like, I may never see some of these people again, you know? And, all these people are telling me stories. Alex, oh my God, Alex's mom and grandma showed up. And they just show up to everything, you know, they're so fantastic. And they came over and just sat. I was introducing them to everybody, and my aunt's closest friend was there, and she shook Alex's grandma's hand, and Alex was like, she doesn't speak any English. And she said, well, I know she understands a handshake. We all understand it. I mean, just these people are just so amazing that I've been blessed to be raised around, you know. My aunt and uncle's closest friends. She looked at me and like, she's the same person that was like at my aunt's house that like literally Caroline called me and called her, and we came right over when my aunt passed away. And I saw her and I hadn't seen her since my uncle passed away. And she was probably closer with my uncle than she was with my aunt. I said, Carol, I mean, this is somebody that's been in my life like my entire life, you know. And I said, Carol, so her husband and my Uncle Dave were like in the military together, and then they worked for General Motors together. And I said, Carol, how are you doing? And she said, we have been the best of friends for 58 years. She said, what do you mean, how am I doing? She was like, I miss my friends. So I'm going to talk about my dad speaking because that stupid yellow light is on. They had like 4 speakers. So Carol's husband spoke because that was like my uncle's closest friend. And then my dad, and then this woman that my uncle worked with, who I had never seen before in my entire life, and she was talking about how there's work friends and then there's friends, and she gave like, she'd been friends with my uncle since she was like 17 and she was like 60, and he had been like her supervisor. And it was just, she gave such a fantastic speech. This one part, she started getting choked up and she said, I was a 17-year-old woman, or girl, you know, almost 18 when I entered the field of the car industry. And she said, working the executive field of the car industry, and she said, in a male-dominant world, and she said, when I tell you that I have not felt safe, she said, I'm not joking when I say that. And she said, Dave was always a safe place for me. She said, I don't say that lightly. She said, any day I could go to him, and, you know, he had me over to dinner at his family's house with my husband, and my uncle was such a great man, you know. So my dad gets up there, and I was a little worried because my dad is like very humorous, you know, just really a funny guy. And all right, so I let my camera cool for a little bit because I didn't want it to die while I was telling the story about my dad. So my dad got up there and he told some funny stories about my uncle, and just some silly stuff. But he was talking at the end, and he said, well, we got up there, he said, I know a lot of people are probably surprised that I'm the one speaking, and he said, you know, but I was part of this family for 16 years, and he said, so I think I have a right to speak, because that I knew Dave just as well as anybody else, or something on my camera. And they were so close. And he said something like, because he spoke at my mom's funeral, and he said, when I spoke, you know, at Peter's mom's funeral, I wanted to talk about the way that she viewed the world. And he was like, you know, she was somebody that viewed the world very much in like black and white, you know, that there was kind of no in between. And my mom did see things that way, you know. Things were either right or they were wrong. I mean, she was a hardcore liberal when it came to issues like that, and there wasn't a lot of gray area. And he was like, so I was thinking a lot about that today in reference to, you know, Dave, and what I wanted to say about Dave and how Dave viewed the world. And he talked about him being like one of the most independent people that he had ever known. And so he said, you know, Peter called me and said that Dave had decided to go into hospice, which was interesting because when I mentioned that originally on here, a lot of people were like, Peter, I can't believe that you don't know what hospice is. So just so you guys understand, okay, that I do understand, I've addressed this before, I do understand what hospice is. I've worked with hospice care workers a lot in the past, but what I had known of hospice was where you basically in-stage hospice, where there's like, you know, 24-hour nursing care, and they come home right before they pass away, if that makes sense. That was what my aunt entered. That was the kind of hospice that my aunt entered. She left the hospital, she knew she was like days away from passing away, and she wanted to be at home. My uncle's was different. He decided to take himself off of like all life preventative medications and that kind of stuff. So, and then a nurse came in once a week, twice a week, I think, maybe, and like checked in on him to see how things were going and all of that. So anyway, and that was his decision. And at that point, he, like in the last month before he took himself, you know, off, well, before he went into hospice, I think had gone into the hospital like 5 or 6 times. It was just a lot. I mean, he was tired. He had done it for 20 plus years, you know, as a long-term heart patient. So my dad was talking about, like, after I called him and told him about that he called Caroline, my cousin. He said, hey, like, do you care if I come and see your dad? And she was like, no, I think he would love that, you know? And so he went over there like one Saturday, and he said, well, when is good? And she said, well, probably tomorrow would be good. And it was like a weekend. So he went over there on like a Saturday at like 4:30 and 5. My dad said, you know, that David been a scotch drinker the better part of his life, and so he went and my dad bought some like super expensive bottle of scotch, and they sat there and talked, and he said, well, I brought you this, there's a bottle in the in the kitchen of this like really expensive scotch, like let's each have a glass of, like let's have a drink together, Dave, like let's have one last drink together, And my uncle said, no, I don't drink before 7. I don't have a drink before 7. And my dad said, what, do you have a board meeting or something to go to? I mean, people thought my dad was so funny today. It was so funny. But, so he was like, no, he's like, and my dad was like, well, I'll leave it here, but, I hope you enjoy it. It's like, this, some kind of scotch that they like had enjoyed like years before or whatever. And, my Uncle Dave was like, take it with you because I won't drink it. And, my dad was like, what do you mean you won't drink it? And he's like, I don't like expensive scotch. I won't drink it. I like cheap scotch. And he was like, and my dad goes, what do you won't drink? And he goes, no. He goes, I have no taste for it. He said, I had to learn years ago the way that Kathy spins. That's my Aunt Kathy. He goes, I had to learn years ago the way that Kathy spins, and I would never be able to afford expensive scotch. So anyway, but my dad said that, this was like the part that like really fucked with my head. That you get to a point in your life where you look at people and you say this, and all I could think about was Tanya in this moment. Like all I could think about was Tanya. My dad said he stood up to leave, and my uncle was not a big hugger. So he said, and they were so close. They were like really good friends for, since their 20s or early 20s. And now they're in their 80s, 60 years of being friends. My dad said he stood up and he shook Dave's hand and he took it in his own. He said, my uncle looked at him and said, we're never going to see each other again, are we? And my dad said, no, Dave, I don't think we are. My dad is like privately very emotional, but like never shows any emotion in public, and he got like so choked up there. And he said, how do you look at somebody that you've known your entire life and say, we're never gonna see each other again, And I just thought, like, I can't even imagine looking at Tanya and being like, we're never gonna see each other again. I can't even imagine, and it was like in that moment that I realized like what life is like. I mean, I get this, right? Like I get it, but maybe I don't, that's like what life is all about, all of this superficial bullshit that we buy into, all of the discussion about stuff that just doesn't matter. All of the hatred that goes on Facebook between friends about politics. All of it, and it ends up coming down to two people sitting across from each other saying, I'm never going to see you again, And he said, my uncle just looked at him and nodded and said, okay. And then his friend Ken shared, and they had been there like an hour before my uncle passed away. I keep on saying my dad. My dad's sitting there, and it's so weird. My dad, who's like, older, just as old as all these people, is like, is still working every day, and he retired from surgery, but he's still working every day. And he looks so young to me, it's like, it's just weird. And I just can't even imagine my dad being gone. And he said, my dad said something to me today. He said, like, your mom passed away so young. He's like, so I could kind of make sense of that. He said, but like, Now Dave and Kathy are gone too, you know, like, and I'm the only one left of the four of us. And I'm like, I can't imagine what that must be like at the end of your life, you know, to know, like, if you're lucky enough to make it that far, like, wow, like, I'm at the end, you know? I remember when my dad had his 55th birthday and somebody came and put like all these pink flamingos in his front yard, like hundreds of them. It was some bunch of nurses that he works with or something. And he was joking about, he was like, double nickels. He kept on saying 55, you know? And I said, like, I remember asking him at the time something about like being that age, and he was like, well, I know I'm on the tail end of my life, you know? And he's always been very cynical like that. And but he wasn't cynical today, you know? He was very real. And then my uncle's friend Ken spoke, and they were there, like, Carol and Ken were there like an hour before my uncle passed away, and they always had this very humorous relationship where they would just like fight with each other, but it was all like in jest, you know? And he said they had a similar conversation about like, we're not going to see each other probably again. And Ken said, I just hope nobody asks me to speak. And I didn't realize how much I missed my uncle until I was there today, you know? And in a weird way, it felt like Caroline and I were like little kids all over again, and all these people were kind of catering to us. It was so strange, you know? And, and it was weird because it was nice seeing everybody, you know, like, it's this like mindfuck kind of like, you're there and it's like so sad while you're there. But at the same time, it's like, it's good to see all these people. But then after my dad said that, I just couldn't get that out of my head. And it's like every person that I talked to, I was like, I don't know when I'll ever see this person again, you know? Like even Caroline's friends from high school that I was so close to, that I like looked up to because I was like 12 or 13, you know, and they were like in high school, 15, 16, 17. I thought they were such cool chicks, you know? And they're there, and I'm thinking, I don't know that I'll ever see them again either. I mean, I just, like, the only time I've seen them in the last 10 years was at my mom's funeral and Kathy's funeral and Dave's funeral, you know? And there's nobody left. And the weird thing about it is, like, my dad, like, if, let's just say, even if he got sick or passed away or something, which, you know, I hope doesn't happen anytime soon, like, my dad's friend group is completely different. It's not the same people. So it would be a completely different set of people, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, it's just so weird to me. We got in the car and Alex was like, are you okay? And I just like lost it. And Alex and I just sat there, you know, for a couple moments, just the two of us. We just sat in the car and just kind of cried. We didn't really like drive away or anything. And my husband was so sweet to me. And Alex he is so good in situations like that. His mom stayed only for part of it because she had to get back to work. But you know, Alex is so just fantastic in those situations of just being so supportive. And it's so interesting too, you know, because like Alex, now having been part of the family for 10 years, like he knows half of these people or more, you know, so they're all talking to Alex, and they're like, oh, Kathy and Dave loved you so much, Alex. And interesting because like in my head I'm being kind of pulled into two different conversations. I don't know if that ever happens to you. Like you're talking about one thing, but you're having like a different conversation in your head. I was watching, so we came home and I was watching Family Feud and Alex was real over it. And he took the dogs out and fed them because I just was exhausted. I just was like, ugh. And I said, I think I'm gonna lay down. And so I laid down at like 8:30. And I was gonna get up at 10 and go for it just died. The camera's been off for like 10 or 15 minutes. I was like, I can't remember what I was talking about. I was like, oh, Alex feeding the dog. So Alex was so sweet. So I laid down and at like 8:30, I was like just drained, like emotionally drained. And I set my alarm for 10 and I didn't even wake up till 11:30 when he came up to bed. I was gonna go for a swim and everything and that didn't end up happening, so oh well, it is what it is. But it's interesting because like I was saying that my mind is being pulled in another direction, so I kind of want to talk about, I put so much chapstick on tonight. I want to talk about something else for a second. So I got a message from somebody tonight, and I don't know which videos of mine he watches, so I'm going to leave his name anonymous because he talked about being sober, being in recovery. But I have to tell you that so I don't even know if these are the videos that he watches, but thank you for your message if you're the one that sent me a message tonight. But I have to tell you, like, one of the things that I love is when husbands and boyfriends contact me and they say, my girlfriend or my wife, you know, loves your videos, and so I started watching with her, and now like I watch them on my own, like when I get home from work or when I'm working out or whatever, and they're like, I just love hearing what you have to say. And a lot of people that are in recovery reach out to me and they'll say, I feel like when I listen to your videos, I'm listening to like a share in a meeting. And so thank you, because like I haven't been able to get to meetings lately or whatever. And like that means a lot to me, you know, because it's important for me to just like share my absolute truth on here, you know. And you know, I was reading comments earlier, and it's always interesting to me the comments that like have a lot of replies underneath them. And somebody said to me, because I was talking about how I hadn't eaten a lot lately, that I should keep vegetables in my refrigerator. And well, this guy had, in his message, he had said, thank you for always being so transparent. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But somebody had said, like, it would be so much, it would be easier if you just kept, like, vegetables in your refrigerator, then you would have something to eat, right? Which would have been a nice way to say it, but they never say anything nice to me. They never say it in a nice way in a comment. And I think everybody knows who I'm talking about, because underneath the comment, a couple people were like, you're always rude in your approach, or like, can you ever say it nice? I mean, a couple people were like, yeah, that's true. And I agree, it's true. I should keep vegetables in my refrigerators, or in my refrigerator. And people were like, well, I don't think Peter likes vegetables. I love vegetables and fruit, honestly. But I just like, I'm not somebody that goes to the grocery store and shops that way. At the periods of my life that I have, I've been 10 times healthier. But I'm also not somebody that's going to sit on video and troll about being heavy and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I mean, I do the best that I can, but I will tell you that, like, well, that's kind of bullshit. I don't do the best that I can when it comes to losing weight or getting healthy. I really don't at all. And that's the one thing in my life that I'm not proud of. And watching some videos tonight, earlier, I realized, you know, it's enough for me to talk about it on video, but it's time for me to start doing something about it, honestly. And and I know I've said it on here, every once in a while I'll get like a nasty comment that somebody will say, like, they know what they're saying, they're not saying it nasty, but they'll say like, so have you achieved your goals that you set for yourself a year ago? And basically what they're implying was, have you lost any weight? And I think we all know I haven't lost, any weight since a year ago. And, for me, I need to be on a very structured, regimented kind of lifestyle change. Like, I need that, because if I don't, then I won't stick to it. But I've said this before, I've often wondered, I've often thought to myself with this one person, because I read all the comments, and oh my God, a little fox just went across the road. A little skinny fox. Sly as a fox. I think there are people, I think this is something that maybe it does need to be talked about, okay? Because, and they know who they are. I've talked about them on here before. There's no way that they don't know who they are, because somebody at the bottom of this reply list said, you always leave a snarky comment. It's on every, and it is. It's literally on every video, right? Like, I could be talking about a movie and they would say, well, that's the worst movie in the world. You know that, don't you? Why would you even watch that? I mean, it's a negative comment on every video, but it's not like a hate comment. Like, there's a difference. You know what I mean? Like, it's really like, do you have anybody in your life that's so miserable that the language they speak to you is always negative? So the reason that I would never block this person's comments or anything is because they kind of make me sad, honestly. Like, I don't know that they see it, but their misery comes out in their comments. It doesn't come across as they're not somebody that I would look at and be like, well, I really respect your opinion, because their sadness, their misery comes out in that a lot, And the reason that I'm bringing it up is because this guy, I had seen that, and then I got this message tonight on my Facebook, channel, profile over there, that I never go to that thing, and so I don't know why I was looking at it, but he had left me a message tonight, and I got a notification for it, and he said that he was in recovery, and that he watches my videos because of his girlfriend and stuff, and he was like, I'm really struggling right now in life on life's terms. Well, this is a recovery term, so the idea of life on life's terms is a recovery term. If I turn the air conditioning on, it will completely frost up the window. So I have it balanced right now in here, so I gotta just crack the window. But it's an interesting topic to me, and he said, thank you so much for talking about recovery and whatever, because I'm struggling with life on life's terms, and it I don't know, you've helped me a lot. So thank you. It makes me happy to know that my videos don't just serve as, I don't know, it would be enough if people simply enjoyed watching them, but to know that they transcend that for at least one person out there, just really, I can't even explain to you how much that means to me, that somebody's like, wow, it made me think differently, or I got something differently out of that, or whatever, and that's why, with nasty, really nasty comments really hold no weight to me, because I know what those are about. It's the kind of in-between comments that I'm like, wow, this is somebody that's really, you can see their personality and their heart speaking. And when you're talking about life on life's terms, it's interesting, because basically what that means is that you're accepting life as it's being handed to you, that how do you deal with the passing of a family member, or how do you deal with going through a divorce, or how do you deal with a child that's sick, or your husband going into that's in the military and being deployed. How do you go through just whatever life hands you in life, losing a job, or the tough shit. It's really talking about the tough shit. And my comment to that has always been, when I share in meetings about that, what's the alternative? You deal with life on life's terms. Well, what's your alternative, right? I mean, you talk a lot about acceptance, or I think a lot about acceptance when I think about life on life's terms, that truly the answer to that is looking at life and looking at certain things that happen, or statements, and just not compartmentalizing, but looking at them and saying, okay, is there any truth in this? Or what am I supposed to learn from this? Or this is just an experience in my life? Because I don't want my life to just be mindless experiences that don't mean anything. I want them to stand for something. I want my life, even if at the end it's just me that realizes or recognizes what my life stood for, I want my life to mean something. I want to look across to my best friend and say, I'm never going to see you again, am I? And know that that friendship meant something. And I think that's what life on life's terms is really about, is just accepting the stuff that happens to us, you know? Like, this is part of the whole gig. This is part of the life, you know? And I was watching these videos earlier today, because I don't think it's any mystery to people what I do. Is that this stupid light keeps on coming on so early. I'm so tired. I can't even get my thoughts out. And it's because I left my camera in the car all day today, so it's like super hot. But I think that, you know, what it is that it's... Oh no, I was watching these videos today, and I think it's no surprise to anybody that I do like drama videos, right, on my main channel. And there were like 3 different YouTubers that I was watching, 3 different kinds of videos. And, okay, so it was Tana Mojo, Trisha Paytas, and Amberlynn Reed. And I was like, you know, and do you ever like, it's like any other day it can be like entertainment to you, but on a certain day it's like not today. I just didn't really have time for the bullshit today, you know what I mean? Like, I'm getting ready to go to my uncle's funeral, I'm filming these videos, I had them on in the background because I was listening to them, because I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to make a video about. And I was like, these people are trolling. Like, they are totally trolling, you know? And it's all about the money. It's all about the views. They're getting views, unbelievable views. Oh, we're just showing you our life. We're just showing... No, you're not. No, you're not, okay? It's not. And it's not popular on YouTube to have a boring life and talk about changing and being positive. And I thought to myself, I was like... Because a lot of these issues, like with Trisha and like Amberlynn, were about weight issues. Well, I struggle with weight, right? And I thought, like, I've done this the last year on my channel. I've talked about my weight, and I've talked about losing weight and getting healthy and then not getting healthy and then being healthy. And I thought, am I doing to some degree what they do, but just not on as great a scale? Like, I am showing my life. I'm being honest. I'm showing what I buy at Meijer and what I'm eating, but it's not to troll. It's because that's who I am, you know? And I thought, okay, well, what do you want your channels to stand for? And I think anybody that watches me knows that I want my channels to be, you know, like clips of my life, but I also want to live the best life that I possibly could ever live. And if my weight is standing in the way of that, if my weight and my body image is standing in the way of that, then those are 2 things that I need to get healthy about. You know, I need to start working more with my sponsor, and I need to start working more with my counselor and talking about my weight issues. I need to, like, really get it together. You know what I mean? And that's the commitment that I'm making to myself, because I don't want to be this channel that 2 years down the road, somebody, rightfully so, says, well, you should leave veggies in your refrigerator. And I'm not asking anybody to go and attack this person, because I don't need that. It's a very fair statement. It really, really is. You know, like, do I agree with the way that it's said to me? No. But I don't want to be that channel. I don't want to be that channel where people are like, I want to be that channel that people say, my God, Peter, you talked about your weight for so long and how it was blockage to your life, and now look at what you've done. You've turned it around. You've used it you've turned it into a strength in your life, that you've overcome that obstacle. That's the channel that I want to be. I don't want to be the channel that sits there and continues to just troll people and talking about this stuff. You know how easy it would be for me? People know I struggle with weight stuff. Do you know how easy it would be for me tomorrow to go do, like, you know, a 20,000 calorie mukbang eating Burger King, McDonald's, and Taco Bell? I'm not doing that, okay? I care about myself. I'm not doing that. That's not healthy for me. And I want to preach positive physical and mental health on my channel. And if that's boring and I don't get the views and I don't get the money that other people make, that's quite frankly, that's fine. I'm fine with that. You know what I mean? Because I think that we need to be better role models on YouTube. If I'm going to preach that, then I need to be that. And And I'm not going to talk about it all the time on here, but that is my goal moving forward. And, you know, sitting there at my uncle's funeral today, I was like, dude, you're on borrowed time, you know? And you've corrected so many things in your life. It's time to take it to another level. It's like, what's the next things you want to do in your life, you know? And I'm so proud of myself for like really working hard on writing these books. You know, it was interesting because two people came up to me today, like kids of my cousins, like two of my cousins' friends' kids came up to me and they're like, oh my God, I read your book. I loved your book so much, and blah, 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 whatever. They're like in high school. One girl was in college, the other girl was in high school. And, you know, I'm proud of that. And when I look around me, there are only a few things that I really feel, like I don't feel like a perfect specimen, and I'll never be that. Like I will always be working in my life on bettering myself. Always. But there's only a few things right now that really stand in the way of that. And if I don't say it on camera, I won't hold myself accountable to it, you know? If I learned anything from this funeral today, when I looked at, you know, all of the people in that room that have made up my life, they've made up my holidays, they've made up weekends at my aunt and uncle's and dinner parties and vacations. When I look at all of that, and I look at all of the recipes that have been shared, and I look at the people that have come and the people that have gone, and I sit and I hear my dad say, we'll never see each other again, will we? And his response is, no, we won't. It really affirms for me how short life really truly is. And I want to cherish every moment of that. And not take it for granted. Because life is such a blessing. It's really such a blessing. And I'm so thankful for you guys out there and the ability to make videos and everything in my life, and my husband and my family and the people and everything. And I'm as sad as I am to lose my uncle, I'm very happy for the opportunity to have a window into what my life has been like up to this point, because I've had a very cherished life. And as long as I continue to put one foot in front of the other and try to better myself on a daily basis, I hope that things will continue to go that way, and I hope that for you too. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.